Today here on August 15th. This is a meeting of the Community Services and Public Safety Committee. I am serving as chairman. My name is Larry McKellen. The vice chair is Logan Cunningham. Is Logan online? Anyone see him? I can't see that.
Yes, sir, I am here.
Oh, great. And I see in chambers that York Glover is present, and I know that Alice is online somewhere. Alice, are you out there?
I am here.
Okay, great. So we have enough people to proceed. Thank you all for attending, and a welcome to everyone in chambers and in the television audience. And thank you very much, Luana Graves Sellers, for appearing here today. I have a few items to go through before we get to your presentation. So I'd like to call this meeting to order, and if you would all join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, Pledge Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I can't really see. I see Mr. Somerville there. Welcome, Mr. Somerville. Joe, are you still out there in the audience? Joe Passam?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining us, and a big hello to all of the executive staff and chambers as well. I am positive that public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. That's correct, Ms. Sarah?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting?
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Absent any discussion, I will approve this agenda without exception. Are there any exceptions? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. May I have a motion seeking approval of the minutes from the May 2nd meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
The second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll approve the minutes without exception. Are there any exceptions? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. And item number 6, which is citizen comments. Sarah, do we have any citizen comments?
No, sir, we don't.
Okay, then I'll close out the citizen comments and move into the agenda items. We have we're lucky today to have a presentation from the Low Country Gullah Foundation, and Luana Graves Sellers, the director of that foundation, is here present with us today. I extend a warm welcome to you and thank you for joining us. Audra, do you want to make any preliminary comments before she begins?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Yes, I am happy to introduce Ms. Graves Sellers. She is the founder of the Low Country Gullah Foundation, and she is here to provide a presentation on what her foundation does for Beaufort County and the citizens.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'll make just a brief note that this will be videotaped and will be in the archives for any of the members of council who are not online or joining us in chambers. And of course, anybody out in the community that wishes to see it. I'm hoping that Mr. Oppart, our public information officer, will make note of that. And in his next announcement, please let the community know that this presentation was made and is available through County Council Channel archives. Thank you. All right, Ms. Sellers, thank you very much. Happy to see you. Happy to hear from you.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the committee and the council for allowing me to present Low Country Gullah Foundation. Can you share my screen, please?
You have to click share from the Zoom link. But
Okay.
I can share your presentation in the PDF that I have.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to come in and spend some time with you, giving you some information, not only about the Low Country Gullah Foundation, but some of the work that we're doing in the community. So the Low Country Gullah Foundation has two dual purposes. One is to protect and provide solutions for Gullah land uses and issues, as well as serve Beaufort County. And so our mission is to protect the Gullah culture's greatest asset, which is historic generational land for Beaufort County landowners, by providing financial literacy and support, economic development options, and heirs property solutions to families who are at risk of losing their property by either family division or at the annual Beaufort County tax sale. So our goal is ultimately to be able to remove all of the names for Gullah families from the Beaufort County delinquent tax list by establishing customized solutions that end the cycle of insecurity and create economic opportunities that would not only benefit the families, but also benefit Beaufort County. And so when it comes to delinquent taxes, there are several problems that occur that cause the issue of families going to the tax sale. Most of the landowners, they're struggling financially with rising annual taxes because of they're often charged higher tax rates. There's property development that is going on around them. Some of the land is left vacant, or most importantly, there is a lack of information. And so part of the solutions to solving the delinquent tax list is creating either economic development or land use options, establishing different Gullah land exceptions within the county ordinances or certain municipalities, as well as providing financial literacy so that ultimately we can create generational wealth. When it comes to resolving heirs property issues, the problems are that many of the families that are living on heirs property might not even know that there is a problem until there's a potential sale that exists. The limited information and guidance that's available on how to figure out the process is not clear, as well as there are land use options that are available for undeveloped land. And unfortunately, there are tax sale regulars that are in a constant cycle of financial insecurity. And so the solutions to those problems would be educational programming, providing specific guidance family by family and case by case with resources to resolve those issues, as well as having informational materials that would be provided in order for people to access them and be able to understand some of the situations that they might be in. So let me take a step back, and a lot of you might not even know what heirs property is. So heirs property is land that has been passed down through generations from family member to family member, often without the property having a deed. The original purchaser might have been an formerly enslaved person that did not have a will or was unable to transfer their deed to the descendants. The original purchaser might have today have hundreds, if not thousands of heirs who have ownership rights to the property, but without there being a clear title, even if they're living on the property, the land, those people do not have proper legality of ownership for the property. So let me kind of break that down for you. So with heirs property being left without legal documentation, the recorded title is usually in the name of a deceased relative, which means that the title is a fractured title because it could potentially be shared by multiple family members. And the will, if one does exist, might include multiple heirs, or if the owner dies without a will, they're literally just passing the property along to heirs at will. And if you look at the image at the side, if the original purchaser is the elderly couple at the top, after 50 or 100 years, that generational train just can blossom significantly. And so here's another illustration to kind of drill down a little bit. So let's say the person in the center is the grandfather, and the title is in the grandfather's name, but the grandfather happened to have passed away. The heirs, because it is not a clear title, it's considered a cloudy title. And so if you look to the right, the grandfather may have offered the land to his heirs that follow, and those heirs might have continued to pass the property on to several other heirs. And so all of the heirs that have been receiving this land, whether they're living on it or not, they now become tenants in common. And so based on this illustration, you can see that all of the descendants might be in agreement, but if only one disagrees with what should happen to the land, then you have a significant issue that becomes something that the court might have to iron out. So if that one single heir decides to sell, it can trigger what is called a partition by sale, and that can result in the easiest scenario for the court is that the property is sold at auction or just to the highest bidder. So what are the implications to Beaufort County if Ayers Property issues continue? So often blighted or abandoned properties can be Ayers Property. Municipalities might struggle to identify who the property ownership is if in case they need to either collect taxes or even enforce local ordinances. And with that all being said, funding for the community revitalization could be in jeopardy because of the cloudiness that Ayers Property has within the community. So what are the implications for Ayers Property owners? Because there is no clear owner of the property, even in the case of someone who is paying the taxes year after year or maybe for generations, the property is still at risk for loss. There's an inability to sell or get a mortgage on the property or even obtain financing without having a clear and consistent agreement between the heirs. This also leads to the destruction of family relationships, as well as because the property is essentially in flux, there's a lack of security and freedom that comes with land ownership or home ownership that most people can enjoy. So what is the critical path to untangling Ayers Property and clearing titles? As I mentioned earlier, some of our Beaufort County municipalities, they have stringent development rules that most Gullah are not financially able to either meet the ordinances or financially be able to obtain the ability to follow those rules. A lot of landowners, they're not even aware of the status of their being considered Ayers Property. Ayers Property is taxed at a higher tax rate because without a clear title or the property being homestead, it is taxed at a 6% rate versus the 4% rate. The other question is, whose name is even on the title? Is there a will or is the title clear? How many heirs are even within ownership or have a percentage of ownership for the property? And if there's, say, 1,000 heirs, how do you even contact all of those heirs so that you can create a clear title? So why fund Gullah land? So looking at the Beaufort County Comprehensive Plan for 2040, Section C, Section 6, is titled "Support the Preservation of the County's Rural Landscape and the Way of Life." And these two are sections within that section where it says that Gullah Geechee culture is under extreme stress from rapid coastal development, population growth, lack of recognition, and financial hardship. And because Beaufort County's Gullah Geechee communities face unique challenges brought on those pressures from increased development. Why should this be funded? Generational landowners are often priced out of being able to pay their taxes when new development comes into the neighborhood. Land valuations might be high, but without any infrastructure on the property or an ability to economically develop the land, most homeowners struggle to hold on to the acreage. And traditional financial lending is just not an option with Ayers Property. And as a result, landowners tend to be land rich and cash poor. So let me tell you a little bit about the Historic Gullah Land Preservation Program. Essentially, we provide resources and information, tax payment assistance, and targeted programming. The way that it most effectively works is early intervention. So by doing that, we're preventing Gullah land losses. We provide tax payment assistance when a family is struggling and is on the tax list, the delinquent tax list. We've been working very closely with the county to receive the tax lists on a monthly basis starting in April so that we can monitor who is there. And as we get closer, based on whatever funding we have, we're able to provide payment for those taxes. One of the other things that we do is we offer property resolution assistance. So case by case, every family situation, of course, will be different. So we provide a customized solution to whatever those issues might be. If there are land uses options, sometimes economic development, if the land is vacant, might be something that will help break that financial circle of insecurity. Or just providing resources and information. Right now, there is no clearinghouse for information within the county to specifically guide people through the steps that are necessary. We also provide financial literacy. So if there is a question of financial insecurity and maybe just financial management within the family is what is necessary, we provide that guidance and that information as well. In addition to economic development, and more importantly, we also provide succession planning, because if families do not have a will and they need to have a will, or as well as a plan for what will happen with the land down the line and into the future, that's an important and necessary step in the process. So what are the kind of resources that I'm talking about? So Low Country Gullah provides targeted programs. As I mentioned earlier, we provide tax payment and financial support. What we need is a dedicated location. We have been surviving on grants and donations from people within the community. But one of the resources that we would also like to do is have a targeted marketing campaign so that we can educate people. Because again, a lot of people might not even know that they're in the situation that they're in, as well as we have been developing collateral materials. And what I brought some samples of that collateral material, which I will pass out to everyone. But just to give you an idea, is just trying to provide information so that people can be aware of what's going on, as well as this is a flyer that was mailed out to families. We contacted over 1,000 families within the past year to make sure that they're even aware of the fact that not only are we here, but we're also here to help and provide the resources that are necessary. And so what is the path towards resolution? This is a community-wide issue, and it needs a community-wide effort that starts with coordination, trust within the community, as well as education. And so building a greater level of collaboration between the municipalities. Again, I mentioned we're already working with the county as far as the tax office is concerned, and we're also working with a couple of the municipalities so that we have a coordinated effort. But this is something that could be expanded to county-wide. In addition to the work that we have been doing with the municipalities, we also work with the Centers for Ayers Property, the Heritage Library, South State Bank, as well as SCORE. And so establishing credibility and trust, and I'm sure I don't need to explain to everybody the level of concern that the community has in trying to resolve things and where they get their information. So one of the things that Low Country Gullah has been able to do is start making inroads in that direction. And again, providing favorable ordinances that can make the process a little bit more user-friendly so that the county and the municipalities have a greater understanding of the unique challenges that Gullah property owners face. And so improved and direct access to information and education is a key part of that scenario. And so creating an organizational coordination that already exists is between Low Country Gullah, as I mentioned, the tax office, the Center for Ayers Property, and the Heritage Library. And the reason why those are important is because each of those different entities provide different scenarios and solutions into resolving the problem. This needs to be a grassroots dissemination of information. What Low Country Gullah Foundation has been doing for the last couple of years is going out to events to provide some of those flyers to wherever we can so that we can educate people. But this also, we've also reached out to local churches and disseminated some of the flyers as well. But local charities, community organizations, all of those need to be contacted and expanded upon so that the information can essentially blanket the county. And part of that would include doing a marketing campaign so that the information can reach people essentially where they are through a variety of vehicles and through either print, radio, TV, or social media. Low Country Gullah has been doing that through social media for quite some time, and we have also been providing or taking whatever opportunities we can to not only do print where a opportunity for, and I'll bring this to you so you can see it a little closer, but opportunities where this was Hilton Head Monthly in January. It was just a story on what the Low Country Gullah Foundation is doing, as well as wherever we can get interviews within the newspaper to not only highlight the story, but also talk about the successes that we have so that people are aware of what we do and be able to contact us and resolve whatever situation they're experiencing. So the way that we've been providing services currently has been primarily through word of mouth. Again, I mentioned we are working online, but through the county office, we are getting referrals from the municipalities, as well as the Low Country Gullah Foundation and our board members. We've been literally going door to door to reach out to families that are struggling. And the way that we're able to do that is through the tax list. We can identify those people who are struggling, and because it's a personal issue, and because someone might be embarrassed because of the situation that they're in, because this is a Gullah organization with Gullah members who can find someone, 2 degrees of separation or whatever the case may be, so that we can have that personal connection with someone versus an outside organization just coming in and knocking on your door and you're just not familiar with it. So that has been the method of how we are reaching out. And again, I mentioned earlier that primarily our funding has come from private donations and grants. So for the past few years, and as I mentioned earlier, we have been working with the Beaufort County Tax Office, but we have been focusing specifically on the town of Hilton Head and the town of Bluffton, and this year will be the first year that we are also focusing on Defusky Island with tax payments and whatever assistance families are needing. So just to give you an idea of what we have done in the past, or what has been necessary in the past few years, these are specific numbers from the delinquent tax list for Hilton Head and Bluffton. And based on the numbers, you can see that in Hilton Head, in 2021, we had 21 properties that actually went up for the tax sale. So far, year to date, there have been 3 properties that we have been able to assist and fund because of the different scenarios that have come up with different families. But of course, as we get closer to October, I'm sure the number will go from 3 to a larger number because the tax list is quite significant this year. And then again with Bluffton, you can see last year we were able to assist 2 families and spent about $1,600. So the type of program development that is necessary is, in addition to the flyers that I will distribute later, we're also talking about expanding our program development and creating additional content, as well as an entire curriculum of programming so that we have an ongoing flow of information that people can access throughout the year. In addition to that, creating collateral materials like a brochure that literally says, what is Ayers Property? What do you do? Where do you go? If you have this particular issue, then you need to go to the Heritage Library to identify your heirs. If you need legal assistance, then there's the Center for Ayers Property. So those are the kind of situations that we're trying to create, as well as the program operation and implementation and that marketing plan. As I mentioned earlier, these are the strategic partnerships that we have. The Heritage Library, Low Country Gullah is not trying to take over anybody's situation based on what they have. We are trying to complement, because what we have found is that the county needs a clearinghouse for referrals to these different areas. So for instance, if someone identifies that they have heirs property issues, but they have not identified who those heirs are, the Heritage Library is already established a program. They have experts who are disseminating explaining who all of the heirs are and identifying them, because if someone who has heirs property just goes straight to an attorney or the Center for Heirs Property, they essentially would be kicked back to the Heritage Library or some way of deciphering who and how they can identify all of those heirs. So from the Heritage Library, once you have all of the heirs, if it's that 1,000 people who are entitled to the property, that's when the Center for Heirs Property could step into, or a specific attorney, where they can provide not only legal services, but guidance along the way. And then when it comes to financial literacy, we have a partnership with South State Bank where they can provide not only financial information, but targeted and individualized budget workshops so that people can kind of break that cycle of financial insecurity, as well as if an outside attorney that has specific heirs property experience, we have a list of attorneys that we're able to refer people over to so that they can iron out whatever the situation might be. So this is just a list of some of the different workshops that we are planning to put together. Again, starting with what is heirs property? How do you trace your land ownership to the beginning? How do you get a clear title? What are some of the legal complications that come along with heirs property? How do you stay off the annual tax list? What is financial literacy? How do you obtain financial literacy? How can you make your land pay for itself? Why are my property taxes suddenly increasing? What can you do with heirs property? What kind of economic development or land use options exist for you? How do you subdivide a property? As well as adding infrastructure to your property, which it tends to be one of the largest issues because there are several properties that are vacant and people don't even know what the process of doing that. So whatever the issue is, we are creating workshops and collateral to answer all of these questions because they're key to resolving the situation. So what are our next steps? We would like to expand our current operations. As I mentioned earlier, currently we are focusing on Hilton Head and Bluffton as well as Defusky, but we would like to eventually expand to the entire county. Right now, we do not have a physical location, and we would also like to hire staff to be able to create that that grassroots opportunity to blanket the county, as well as make a significant presence within not only organizations, but also within some of the Gullah churches that are throughout the county. We'd like to develop an ongoing program schedule. We'd also, in addition to the collateral that we have, we'd like to produce additional collateral materials, as I mentioned earlier, similar to a brochure that can be handed out at churches, at the tax office here, or wherever the tax office is, or at churches and different locations like that, as well as create a marketing plan, because people, again, are not aware if they are living on heirs property until possibly at a funeral or somewhere like that where the heirs are just coming together and figuring out that there's a problem because there is no will for the deceased person. So based on those steps, I've provided a budget for next year. And so as far as the various elements that we provide, the operational, the programming, and the tax payments, we are looking to raise $342,000 so that we can properly execute the plan that I have laid out to you beforehand. And so, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you about the Low Country Gullah and the work that we're doing. Are there any questions that I might be able to handle?
Yeah, before I have some questions of mine, anybody online or in chambers have any questions?
I had a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Alice, go ahead.
You said you mailed out 1,000 mailings to different owners. Was that list based on the Beaufort County tax rolls, or are you planning on covering other counties besides Beaufort County in the future?
Well, believe it or not, within the last couple of weeks, I have been asked if I could expand this program into other counties. The Jasper County was the question that came up. At this point, we started with Hilton Head and we moved into Bluffton. We'd like to expand to the entire Beaufort County, but my feeling is that ultimately it will be something that other counties will want to or need to get involved in.
So I guess that my other question about the 1,000 mailings, where did that list come from?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't answer that. Because we have access to the county list, the county list has been divided into potential either Gullah families and/or Ayers Property families. So in combining those within the Hilton Head and Bluffton communities, that's where the 1,000 came up with. It was just like 1,052, I think is the number, or something like that. But if it is something that is going to expand into the county, that is something that I would need to work with the tax office to further identify the properties that would fall under either Ayers Property or Gullah land properties.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Go ahead, Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just looking over the budget a second ago. You said you needed 140,000 for salary, and 100 of it was for one full-time and 40 for the other. I was trying to read it, but it went away too fast. So just make sure I got those numbers correct.
Yes, I'll go back. There it is. Yes, because of the amount or the comprehensiveness of not only developing the program as well as the collateral material and maintaining that grassroots connection to the community, that's where the salaries need to be in order for it to be full-time. Right now, I have been doing this part-time. The foundation does have a board, but it for the most part is me, myself, and I who is going out and doing everything to make sure that all of the work that is required is done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple of quick questions. I know that over the years that the cloudy titles and deeds have been a real problem establishing a clear ownership, but I think that the workshops that you have planned ask all of the questions that are necessary for people to gain a clear understanding of what the problem is and how many different issues face the heirs. As you say, could be in the hundreds or even sometimes thousands of people. So I congratulate you on the workshops, and I'd like to try and get some word out for you here. We have a public information officer, and if you could send to the county administrator's attention a summary of what you would like to perhaps see appear in the newspapers for some media support, perhaps our public information officer could ensure that gets to his sources so that your organization receives some exposure with regard to the goals that you have and how you intend to achieve them. And one final question. Are you a 501c3 IRS designation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm going to try and follow up on that with our community services department. So thank you very much. Luana, thank you very much for coming over and taking the time to make.
Larry?
Yes. I hear my name. Yes.
Larry, I had a question, if you can hear me.
Go ahead, Stu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Luana. This is just kind of question today. Given that this is fairly widespread problem, it kind of begs the question in my mind as to whether there's any kind of ordinance change that we could make to help in either the long term or the runs through my mind, given this is a sizable portion of our population, does this lend itself to some kind of a county office at some point in time? So, as I said, I'm not necessarily looking for an answer today on those, but those two things crossed my mind as I was listening to your excellent presentation.
Thank you for that.
Is there any further questions from anyone online or in the chambers? If not,
Mr. Chairman, before you go in, yeah, I appreciate it. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mrs. Sellers for your, what I consider an excellent presentation, dealing with some of the problems that exist in the Gullah community with Ayers Property. And a lot of land has been lost because of Ayers Property and not the third, fourth, fifth generation not knowing that there's ownership there or who is in charge, because grandfather used to pay the taxes and now nobody's actually paying the taxes. So the educational component is crucial. And one of the things that have impressed me with the foundation has been actually what you have accomplished, and you did not talk about that, but you have accomplished a lot on Hilton Head, and you branch off into Bluffton, and to a point that you have families that you've been working with and have worked with over the last several years to save their land. And I think it's commendable on your part, your organizational part, and because you're one person, I don't know how you even think about expanding to a Jasper County. It's just enough for just one person volunteering her time to just handle Hilton Head and let alone Bluffton. So I want to commend you for that. But the problem exists all over Beaufort. And you what I see establish a grassroots initiative where you are working with communities, you're involving yourself with that trust, and I underline that in your presentation, trust, because that's something that has to happen before people even let you into the door.
Yes.
They got to trust you, and they got to feel comfortable that you are not there to take advantage of them, and you are establishing that. Mr. Chairman, I would love for us to continue this dialogue and seeing how we could actually expand this service to areas that I think is needed in this community, in this county, particularly my community, north of the Broad. We have worked and we have collaborated with the Centers for Ayers Property, but there's really, and I must say this publicly, there's been some concerns with the Centers for Ayers Property. They're a good organization, but and not that I don't like lawyers, but it's hard to work with lawyers sometimes. And having somebody like yourself, your organization, to kind of work with community people to get them educated, to prepare them before they even go talk to a lawyer, I think, Mr. Chairman, is very crucial. And I would love to see us talk some more about this and how we can expand that to areas that are of concerns in Beaufort County other than Hilton Head, and you're moving into Bluffton. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate your kind words. What I will add to that is that the establishing the trust and being able to hold the hand of the individual is what has been part of our success, because frustration is probably the biggest issue that comes up with families, because say they go first straight to the Center for Ayers Property, but they can't help them, then they don't know where to go. So being that kind of clearinghouse has been our secret sauce, so to speak, that we can take them from the very beginning, identify what their issues are, but make sure that they are going through the process to resolution versus just, here's some information and, good luck. Because that is the primary reason why a lot of the properties eventually just go up for sale, because no one knows how to figure it out. And there isn't that kind of collateral, even if it's just a checklist where people can go and say, okay, well, I know I need to get the heirs, I know I need to do this, so that people have the information to move it forward and we can find some resolution. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Sellers. We once again appreciate you making an appearance here today and making this excellent presentation to inform us and everybody who's watching exactly what the situation is that needs to be resolved to solve the problem of heirs property inheritance, really, is what we're talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, I will leave some of the collateral materials that I have so that the entire council can see what the information that we're already working with.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Sarah, we're going to go to item number 8. We're going to ask this body to recommend approval of the reappointment of Wendy Bukowski to the Board of Disabilities and Special Needs for a 4-year term with an expiration date of 2026. And that recommendation will go to council for their consideration. Is that right?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this appointment? Hearing no discussion, I'll seek approval without exception. Are there any exceptions? Hearing no exceptions, this matter will be moved forward to the full council for its consideration. Sarah, does the full council have to give it consideration? Does this committee have authority?
No, sir, it has to go to council.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything further from anyone online or in the chambers? Hearing no further discussion on any matter, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all very much for your full participation.
Okay.